A new year is upon us, infinite possibilities await. I wonder what awaits us in 2021. At least for the Soft Skill channel, I can give you some insights. So grab your favorite drink, make yourself comfortable, we'll take a look at that. Welcome to the Soft Skill channel. My name is Sebastian Jung and I welcome you to the first channel update this year. We started the year with the video about how I plan my day. It was released on the very first day of this new year and I think it was quite befitting the occasion regarding especially New Year's resolutions. It was some custom content and I think it turned out nicely. After that, we continued our series on Schulz von Thun with a video about his vicious circles. This was a nice addition to Schulz von Thun's styles of communication that we discussed before and where the vicious circles made their first appearance. However, I think it was worth the effort to take another more detailed look at them, since they are quite an interesting model. And finally, of course, we had another book review. This time it was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Quite an interesting book. Took quite a lot of effort though. I mentioned that I have 14 pages of notes for a book that isn't very big and doesn't have that many pages, but the information is quite condensed. And of course there was the additional topic of the German and English edition being different to some extent, and yeah, it took quite some effort, I'd say, in regard to preparations and writing of the script. This was probably the video that took the most effort so far. In regard to cutting, it was probably Schulz von Thun's styles of communication that had a lot of things displayed and little markers and additions on display. So in regard to cutting, that probably took the most effort. Of course, there are several more interesting videos to come in the upcoming month, and it will be another 3-week block, so we will have 3 videos before the next channel update. And the next month will be about the topic of stress. As some of you might remember, stress was our very first topic when we started the channel. Our first 3 videos were the series How to Deal with Stress, followed by 2 more related to stress, and after that we didn't cover the topic further, but now we are returning to that and continuing this topic. First, we will have a look at the effort-reward imbalance, which is a model that deals with occupational stress, with stress that is caused by your work. It's quite interesting and we will take a look at that. Sorry. And after that we will talk about stress and sex. Sex is probably not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about stress, but it is quite an interesting example because sex suffers from stress, due to stress, but sex can also relieve stress, and finally, sex can itself be a source of stress. So it is quite an interesting example and we will have a look at that. And of course there will be another book review, and this time we will take a look at a book about mindfulness, which is a topic I introduced briefly but didn't continue up to now. So it's about time, and we will look at a book by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is very important, who has been very important for introducing mindfulness to the Western countries. And we will look at his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, which is a nice introduction to mindfulness. I also have this book by Jon Kabat-Zinn, which is the German edition of Full Catastrophe Living. As you see, this is some easy reading. This is the book that you want if you want the full introduction to MBSR, mindfulness-based stress relief, the method developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn. However, for an introduction to mindfulness, Wherever You Go, There You Are is the book to go to. So, this will be our topics for the next month. But what do we have in store for 2021? First of all, we will continue the channels, both the German and the English one, and the schedule will remain the same. So there will be a new video each Friday, 6 p.m. UCT. And after 3 or 4 videos, there will be a channel update, and the last video before the channel update will usually be a book review. This has developed into a kind of standard that we will stick to. And of course, there will be plenty of exciting new videos. As I mentioned before, we will continue our series on Schulz von Thun about communication, but it will be spread out a bit more. Recently, we've had a Schulz von Thun video each month. Sometimes we've had 2, and we want to spread them out a bit more to have some more diversity in our video schedule. And but we will, of course, still continue the series, and we will cover all the interesting topics. And regarding communication, we will spread out a bit more. We won't just cover Schulz von Thun, but I will also introduce you to some of the very basic models of communication, such as the sender-receiver model, the iceberg model, and we will probably also cover Watzlawick in 2021. We will also provide more videos about self-management and time management, topics that we've only touched briefly so far. We will cover some of the standard topics such as setting priorities, Pareto principle, things like that. And one of the first topics we want to cover there is procrastination, which is a classic in the channel. As you probably know, it was requested by a viewer of the German channel a while back, and to fulfill that wish, we did the book review on Eat That Frog, which turned out to have only very little information about procrastination. So this is still open, and we will cover that this year, soon. And of course, we will also further cover the topics of work-life balance and personal development. For work-life balance, we will have the videos about stress next month, and personal development is frequently covered in our book reviews, such as last week's Man's Search for Meaning. Another topic that we are already working on, where we have already done some research, but it's quite a lot of work, is the next entry in our About Soft Skills series. It will be called something like Aren't Soft Skills Questionable? and it will deal with all of the shady aspects of soft skills, such as methods and techniques that are heavily advertised but don't have a sound scientific foundation, and methods that are actually outdated, and all of the kinds of wrong turns you can take in the area of soft skills, and yeah, all of these numerous problematic aspects. And after we've done that video, there will probably be more where we look at individual problematic aspects in more detail. And of course, we also took note of all your wishes and requests. As I mentioned before, procrastination, and I have some more in my list. Most of those are from the German channel, but they will probably be interesting to you as well. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People was requested as a book review, and nonverbal communication was requested. And we have recommendations on the How of Happiness and 12 Rules of Life. And we will probably also further cover the FIRE movement. I think I've covered all of the requests and wishes that were made in the comments. However, if I missed any, if you have requested anything or recommended anything in the comments and I forgot about it, please remind me in the comments and I will add it to the list. And of course, if you have any further requests or wishes or recommendations, please let me know as well. And there are plenty of other topics that we are interested in and that we would like to cover. For example, a topic I find quite interesting are biases. And there we will look at the work by Kahneman and Tversky, probably starting with Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And after that, I will probably deal with some of the biases in more detail in separate videos. And we have plenty of other books lined up. We have a big reading list regarding soft skills, so we won't run out of material there. And there are still new books published all the time. So yeah, we won't run out of material. And a topic we still have in the back of our heads since a while back is doing a short series on progressive muscle relaxation, a relaxation technique where we would like to provide both a guided exercise, such as you find frequently on YouTube, where you listen to the video while actually performing the exercise. So it's basically just audio, but so it's a guide for the exercise. And we would also like to provide a basic introduction, what the technique is actually about and what you need to look out for and take care of when you do the exercise and how it works and everything. So you don't just have the exercise itself, but you also have the corresponding background information, which I find very important, but isn't done as often on YouTube so far. And important note regarding our book reviews. There was the somewhat troublesome review for Feierabend by Volker Kietz recently, which is a book, a German book, that is not available in English. It hasn't been translated into English. And we were wondering how to deal with it, and it was somewhat difficult because we didn't just want to skip it in the English channel because it's an interesting book and an interesting topic. However, we also didn't have the resources to create another video for the English channel or an entirely different video. So in the end, we decided that in the future we will just deal with such cases. We will treat such videos as regular book reviews, and in the video I will mention that the book is not available in English and that you can't get any further information apart from the video. However, I think it is still interesting to get an insight into a German book by some German author or scientist that you might not be able to get to know anything about otherwise. Regarding our channel updates, I am planning during the next few months to provide some information and some of our experiences and lessons learned about starting a YouTube channel. Now, I know, of course, that there are plenty of YouTube channels that deal entirely with how you run a channel and how you do marketing and everything. However, what I would like to do is just provide some personal experience, how we experienced starting our channel, what we learned, what we found out, and what was important, to give you some insight into that. I think it is a good time to do something like that because the channels are now more than 6 months old, but they are still younger than a year. And I think that this is a good time for such an account, for such descriptions. So we will do this in the next couple of months, during the next couple of months probably. We will also use the channel updates to recommend some other channels. As I mentioned before, this is still in planning. And apart from that, of course, we hope that both our channels develop nicely in 2021 and that also the English channel experiences some additional growth and turns into an useful and interesting resource for an international audience. And a personal hope I have is that there will be some more interaction, some more comments, some more feedback. Originally, these channel updates were intended as a format where I also answer your questions and answer your comments, and maybe we will have some more of that in the future. I think it would be quite nice. So if you have any questions about the topics I cover in my videos, feel free to post them in the comments, and if there is room for a more extensive answer, I will probably provide one in an upcoming channel update. By the way, welcome to everybody who has joined the channel recently and maybe is watching this as their very first channel update. And thanks for still being here to all our previous subscribers. I hope this short preview was interesting for you and there are a lot of topics that you are looking forward to. We will see each other next week when we talk about the effort-reward imbalance. For today, I take my leave. Have a nice day. See you next time.